Hello, it's time again for another episode of the SMC Journal podcast, and I am Scott Moore, your host. For many years, I have been a consultant around performance engineering and load testing, and for a lot of those years, LoadRunner was my primary tool of expertise. I've since branched out and I use many different tools to do my consulting work, but with LoadRunner, I have so many years of experience, I've learned a few things. And over the years, I have shared a lot of my tips and tricks and best practices, and some of you may not be aware of that. So if you are doing load testing and maybe you are new at it and you're wanting somebody to help you, guide you through not making some of the mistakes that some of the experts have made in the past and learn from us, this is the show that is for you today. So I'm going to be sharing that today. Before I do, let's talk about the sponsors that make this show possible for us, including my friends who make LoadRunner, Micro Focus. You know, performance matters to them, and they are the makers of the entire LoadRunner family, which includes LoadRunner Professional, Cloud, Enterprise, and Developer. We have links on our website, the smcjournal.com, as well as the YouTube links or that QR code that you see there for the community that they have, which is one of the largest communities of practitioners in the world, community.microfocus.com, or their performance engineering LoadRunner family page and the YouTube playlist that features a lot of performance engineering videos on it as well. This episode is also sponsored by StormForge. The StormForge platform focuses on AI-powered software designed to help DevOps teams release with confidence, also helping IT leaders realize the promise that cloud native brings, or is supposed to bring: faster innovation, higher quality, resilience, and scalability with efficiency. Check them out at stormforge.io. This podcast is also sponsored by my friends at Bright Payment Solutions. Bright offers merchant services for a wide variety of credit card companies. They take most major credit cards and provide you, the retailer, with the lowest rates and lowest fees possible. They'll help your business generate more revenue through a variety of payment solutions, including their own point of sale equipment and software. So make sure you let them know that you appreciate them and Micro Focus and StormForge for supporting the performance community. I certainly do. I want to mention also, Bright is also, they have a really good video production team, and I've been working with that team for the past couple of months on my other show, The Performance Tour. I've noticed the video quality of the episodes is going up each episode, and just everything is getting better, and I love working with those guys. So thank you, Dave Humphrey and Ian and Lawrence and Bethany and all the people there at Bright Payment Solutions. It's a joy working with you. So on with the show. Now, I'm going to share my website with you, not as a self-promoting thing, but this is the document that we're actually going to go over. This is going to be provided to you as a free download. This is one of two that we're featuring on today's show. If you'll navigate to scottmoore.consulting, I believe right now, as of this airing, it's about the 6th blog page in, if you're scrolling through all the blog entries that I've made. But you want to look for this thing called LoadRunner Best Practices, and you'll see a link for Read More. If you click on that link, you will see a small article about how long I've been using LoadRunner and that I have wanted to provide some tips and tricks alongside my good friends who are also very experienced LoadRunner people. We put together this document, but that link that you see there, that bit.ly link, is the link to the document. So let's just take a look at that document right now. This is what it looks like. It's called LoadRunner Best Practices, and it includes scripting, testing, analysis, and organization of your product. So look at those names there. Tony Gartrell, my brother from another mother when it comes to load testing. Jay Rossler, Albert Lang, Ron Sursley, and James Pulley. You probably recognize a few of those names. You'll also notice that the date on this document is from 2019. This show is airing in summer of 2022. So why are you showing this old document? Because it's actually still valid. Some of these things we've used for years. Many of us, these authors included, have used these best practices to do most of our products. Now, I'm not going to sit here and read the document to you. You can read yourself. We put it together so that you could download it and read it yourself. But I wanted to explain at a high level why we put some of the things in here. And for those of you going, well, it's still an old document, that's where you come in, because we'd like for you to look it over and say, hey, Scott, some of those things are no longer valid, or they need to be changed, or here's some additional things. This is called collaboration, and this is really what I want out of sharing this document with the community. Now, since I've put it out there in 2019, there's been a lot of people who have downloaded it, but how many people have actually went back and made additional contributions? A few, I'll give you that, but not as many as we'd really like. So that's the reason why I want to share this with you. Now, this has been out there as a free download from my site, but I'm getting new followers all the time. So I want to make sure that anybody who's been following me over the past, say, year to year and a half that doesn't know about this, they know this resource is available to them. It doesn't cost you anything to download it and take a look at it. It's a Google Doc. So let's go back to the document and take a look at what we've got here. We cover, as I said, scripting, transaction timings, parameters, scenarios, results, and analysis. Remember, results and analysis are two different things. How you set up your directory structures, runtime settings. I mean, the whole gamut is in here. Again, I'm not going to read it to you, but one of the things we take a lot of time on in this document is talking about how you name your scripts, because that's really important with LoadRunner. You want to go ahead in your planning phase and decide how you want to name your scripts and name the transactions, because you'll want that to be aware of how it's going to look in the analysis product. And this is the reason why you'll see me include naming conventions that have like S01. Script 01 is what that stands for. I always put that in there, S01, S02, S03 with underscore, and then name it whatever I want to, some intuitive descriptive name, because if it's the first script, if it's the first business process that I'm recording, I want that to show up first. And under that script, I'm probably going to put some kind of naming convention like T01, T02. So just for the first script, I'm going to list the number of transactions, and I want to see the order that they appear in the business process. Otherwise, if you just have names and it goes by alphabetical order on analysis, you're going to be looking at this report and you're not going to really know what order they happen, and it's going to be confusing to somebody who wasn't privy to you creating this test and seeing behind the scenes. If they're just seeing your final report, or they're just seeing the test analysis in LoadRunner, they might be confused. So this just helps everybody. One of the things around transactions that I really like to do is put what's called a common transaction timing. And that's where, if I'm going to include a login transaction in every single business process, that's a name that's going to be shared throughout every single one of my scripts. I would rather have the transaction times average out for all of them across all scripts, instead of having a login for timings average for just business process 1, just for business process 2, et cetera, et cetera. So I always put this AA underscore login. Let's say that was the first timing that I'm doing in my script, and ZZ underscore log out, no S01, no T01, because this is going to be named in every single script that I do. And that way, when you go back to the analysis report, you're going to see at the top AA login before you even see S01, T01, and you're going to see an average of those logins across every single script that does the same exact code. Now, if it's doing something different, if the login is different for your particular application, you wouldn't do that. But it's just an example of a shared transaction. I believe that gives you, if you've got more sampling, if you've got more things to get, not just averages, but like the 90th percentile or the 95th percentile, whatever you use for your measurement, it's better to have more samples than fewer. And because they are not unique and it's the same code across business processes, it makes it more modular and reduces the number of S01, T01s that you need to do throughout your script, like S02, T01, S03, and they're all login example. So that's just an example of how myself over time just learned, this helps naturally reduce the things that I see on the analysis report and gives me some better results. Some other things that I will mention are like some settings in LoadRunner. When you're looking at automatic transactions by default, this yellow box that you're seeing here, define each action as a transaction, is typically selected by default, or has been in most of the versions prior to the one that's out now, and I believe the same is true for the one that's out now. So what does that setting do in LoadRunner? It means that if you don't put any transaction timings in your script whatsoever, and you just record it and replay it, LoadRunner is made up of 3 sections: an initialize section, an action section where most of the work gets done, and then an exit section, or init, action, and end. The action is where most people put all of their LoadRunner code and all the business process automation, if you will. So if you just keep that box checked, then when you run your script, at the end of it, you're going to see 3 transactions. The name of your script is going to have init, it's going to have action, and then it's going to have end. Each one of those will have a timing, even if there's not any code in init or end. And then that action timing is going to be everything that was within it, which is why you want to create your own timings, your own transaction timings in your script. But if you leave that checked, it's still going to come up on the analysis report, and you don't want that. Unless you're doing some quick science experiment and that's all you want to know is how long this particular action, this automation that you recorded takes for some temporary reason, I mean, that's fine, but typically you're going to want to turn that off. Again, we spend a lot of time in this document on naming conventions. For example, like parameters. Parameters should start with some kind of a letter or underscore to indicate the source of the parameter, because you get some dynamic parameterization from the system. Some are created that you create programmatically. Some you get from a file. So it would be nice to have some sort of system that tells you of the parameter and the data that you're using in your script, where is it coming from? Where did it originate? And that will help you if you run out of data, or you're running into a situation where you're getting failures because of bad data. You would know why immediately just based on the name. Another naming convention is the naming for scenarios. So I always kind of name those based upon a unique value, but also a descriptive value for the test run. For that scenario, which is the running of a test. I will usually have some kind of date, time format, and then the kind of test that was running, and also the number of virtual users that are running. Okay, all of these naming conventions are subject to if you don't like this best practice, this is not saying you have to do it. It's just sort of a guide that has helped us in the past. Me and other consultants that have done this helped us get our work done quicker and see immediately, not having to dive into, open up files, open up things. We can actually just see from the file names. It's a descriptive enough information that tells us what it is, so that we can just keep going. Another thing is how we organize everything within LoadRunner. Within LoadRunner, you have various types of files. You have LoadRunner analysis files, which usually end with a .lra extension. You have the data that's used, like let's say you had a data file, a CSV file of usernames and passwords, for example. Those would be stored in a data directory. I've got a specific analysis directory for analysis. Documentation, I have a separate folder just for any documentation. That might include my planning documentation, my final report that I'm writing, maybe that's a Word document, or any other kinds of descriptive things. Maybe I've asked for documentation about the app from the team, and that's where they're providing me that information. Now, some of this is old school, because you might want to say, well, we don't use any kind of Word documents here. We have user stories, we have Wikipedia stuff, wikis, we have those kind of things. So we don't use it. Great, just substitute that as the resource that you're going to instead of this. But if you are having to go back to those kind of basic things, if you've got a file structure that you're having to deal with and you have to even self-version things, so you don't even have a versioning tool, then this is the way that you would do it. I find that it's better to know how to do it the old hard way and then say, well, you know what, we can replace this hard step, this hard way, with a better way over here, and this is the way that we do it. The output of LoadRunner files can be in a Word document, can be a PDF document, and it can be HTML. I recommend using HTML when you can because those are much smaller files, and I would create an HTML directory and put those LoadRunner analysis reports, test result reports in HTML format. Pretty easy to find a web server, create a web server somewhere, and stick those HTML files on there and send a URL link to people who they can just click on it and read it for themselves. Generally, those HTML reports have a export button for the graphs where people can actually export the data that's behind the graph into an Excel spreadsheet and create their own graph if they want to filter further than what you've done in your test results and your particular results. I also have a folder for the actual install, like the LoadRunner install files. If you're installing standalone generators and then you've got the full install for LoadRunner, this is where I would put all of that, and any patches that have to be installed maybe over the top of that, or service packs, something like that. I have a separate folder for reports other than HTML. If they've requested PDF be the main reporting mechanism out of analysis, I will store all of those there. We have a separate folder for results here. And why do I do that? Because results are different than analysis. Results are the raw data from the controller in LoadRunner that you could create several analysis analysis sessions from test results that were the raw run from the controller. You may create an analysis session that's way more in-depth for technical resources, and then you may create one that's more of a high level and then export from each one of those a different set of documentation for business analysts and management versus a technical report for DBAs, server managers, network managers, things of those titles. Obviously, I would have a folder for scripts and then any templates. When I'm creating analysis, I am generally spending quite a bit of time creating that first analysis report when I'm going to be running multiple tests. Let's say I'm going to be running full 100% load test of LoadRunner over and over again, and between each run there might be small tweaks and tuning steps that might take place, and then I would rerun that test. Or maybe I'm running a daily automated run. I will have a template built for analysis that can then be applied if it's the same exact run, same situation, same application, very few changes. And then that analysis template can be applied to analysis and then exported out. And you can even automate a lot of that through the analysis API in LoadRunner. Would just simplifies the analysis, creating those analysis sessions it reduces the time that it takes by a lot. So I definitely recommend using that as a best practice. You always want to treat your VUGen code as code. If you can treat it like any other kinds of code that is being written in the organization, it means that you're going to want to document your code, you're going to want to version control your code, and you're going to want to define what's happening in there so that if anybody ever comes behind you, they understand what you did and why. So we've actually got a template for a header file that's commented out that you can actually start putting information in as a template for documenting your code in VUGen. I think it's pretty helpful. Should you change it and for your particular situation? Absolutely. So we've got other information in here about how you treat think time, how you should set runtime settings in here. And I said I wasn't going to read the whole thing, and I'm in the middle of reading almost the whole thing to you. So I'm going to let you download that. I do want to mention one other thing here that's in this document. It talks about some specific code that will send messages to the controller real time as the script is running to update your controller information, so you don't have to dive into the log files for the scripts as they're running. You'll know exactly where they are, and you can send yourself all kinds of messages that tell you at what state you're in, if an error happens, what that error is. So it kind of gives you a lot of information that can be sent directly to the controller as the script is running real time, instead of learning after the fact. It also can keep a log of that information that will help you troubleshoot your scripts when things aren't going as planned. So I like this document. It was something that took a long time to get put together. It was reviewed by a lot of different people, so I'm pretty happy with it. So I think it still works today, but does it probably need to be updated? Probably so. And there's probably different GUI screens that need to be captured for the latest version of LoadRunner. Some of those screens may have changed. Some new options might even be available that need to be discussed. So if you're a LoadRunner expert, or you pride yourself as such, it would be great if you could read this and make some recommendations on how we can improve this document. And happy to do it. Always looking for your feedback. There's one more document that I want to talk about, and that is also on my website. If you go to my website, you will see the LoadRunner True Client Best Practices, and you can read more. Just like the other document, there is a bit.ly link, and you can look at that, download that. So for those of you who spend most of your time creating true client protocol scripts, you know, that protocol is a little bit different animal, and it needed its own document because there was a lot of information to it. So that's the reason why we separated those, or else the document would get pretty big. Now, if you click on that link, this is what it looks like. It's the LoadRunner True Client Best Practices and Lessons Learned. Different group of people created this document, including Shlomi Nissim, which at the time, this was 2019, so he'd already left, but during the years of True Client and its, you know, as they were implementing this and going back to HP software, Shlomi was the product manager for True Client. He was there from the beginning. He actually reviewed this and added some additional tips and tricks that we didn't know about as well. So this is actually from people who have worked at the R&D level at Mercury and HP software prior to the acquisition from Micro Focus. So this document has information specifically around the True Client protocol, the different limitations that it has, how to use it effectively as browser level performance testing to get that rendering time from the thick client, the best practices to do that, while also possibly mixing that with a protocol level script to get a test run in the right way. So we talk about some previous versions going back to like 12.53 and different ones. We probably do need to update this because there have been changes to True Client since that time, since 2019. So it would be very good for us to update this. We go into how one of the big challenges with True Client is sometimes objects on a screen, JavaScript objects, are not recognized properly. So how do you find that and make sure that every time the script runs, it knows about that object, what it is, where it's supposed to be, the label, for example, on it, and how do you take that information and make sure that your script will always pass every time that it runs, even if that object turns out to be dynamic. So we go through that as well. I really want to thank John Rice for being part of it. Now, John Rice was with Oracy Consulting for a long time, and he is still a consultant, I think, with Tech Systems, and worked with James Pulley for a while. There's stuff that probably he knows that maybe even isn't in this document, because he's done so much work with True Client. But I really appreciate his contribution to this document. So John, if you're watching, thank you again. We've got print screens of, like what happens when there are lost objects. How do you deal with that? How do you look at runtime settings just for True Client? How do you make sure that you've got your actions and your blocks and everything set right. What happens when steps time out? How do you set that, and how do you deal with the right speed and the right amount of logging? So I think this is pretty helpful. I don't know of anybody else who's put something out like this, especially for free, but we've been doing this for a long time. So I welcome any feedback and any additional participation for this kind of documentation, and I'd love to be putting out more. But think about where I'm at and what I'm doing now. I'm doing a lot of content creation, and I'm talking about a different product almost every day. So there's no way that I can be an expert at everything and know everything at the level that somebody who's actually using these products on a daily basis, on applications, on projects. So you're now the experts out there, and you have to help me out. And so give me this feedback of how we can update these documents and make them better. In the meantime, these are free downloads for you. We will have links in our show notes for how to get to these so you can download them directly and enjoy them. That is today's show. What do you think about these documents? You can talk to me about it by looking me up on the web, and I'm easy to find. scottmoore.consulting is my website, and there's the URL for my LinkedIn profile, as well as my Load Tester Twitter account. You can also email me at help@scottmoore.consulting, and also subscribe to this YouTube channel. If you like this kind of content, it would be great if you could subscribe. I do want to say that as of this airing, we have now surpassed the 1,000 user subscription mark. Now, that doesn't mean that I was looking for monetization, because actually there is no monetization at 1,000 users unless you also have 4,000 hours of watch time, according to YouTube, which I do not have. So 1,000 users, subscribers on YouTube was just a personal goal that I had, and we achieved it in approximately 6 months. So I want to thank everybody who subscribed. Now, I'm working on a giveaway, and I want this giveaway to be something special. The challenge that I have is on YouTube, it's very hard to figure out who is a subscriber and how do I get a hold of them. What do I give away when I don't know any other way to get in touch with them except contacting them through YouTube. So I'm working on that right now, but expect there to be an announcement very soon about a giveaway. I may have to ask my YouTube subscribers to go to a page and tell me who you are, so that if you win, I can give you this prize. I don't share that information with anybody. It's something that's just for me, but it's a way for me to stay in contact with you, obviously, if we were to set that up and just let you know that you won. So I want to benefit everybody, and I want to be able to give something away so that it doesn't matter where in the world that you're at. I'm based in the United States, but I know a lot of people watch me in Europe and India and other places. So I want to be able to easily get you your prize, and I want it to be something that's very nice, not just a little $10 or whatever gift certificate, because I do appreciate the subscriptions. So thank you for that. What would you like for me to talk about in the future? I am actually queuing up shows for the remainder of summer right now. If there's a particular topic or a particular person that you would like for me to interview, I'm always open to that. I've got some really cool stuff queued up over the next 4 weeks. We're going to be talking about eggplant performance, and we're going to be talking about catch point and web page tests and some of the new stuff that's coming out from them. So I hope you'll subscribe and watch for the new episodes to come out. And then who knows? I mean, we're already into summer, which I can't believe this year is passing by so fast. We're over 50 episodes into this for this year. So what else can we talk about for you? Let me know at help@scottmoore.consulting, or contact me the other ways. For now, this is Scott Moore for the SMC Journal podcast saying thank you for watching, and bye-bye.